All right, we got another great episode recording today. I have a special guest. First, I want to thank all the sponsors. Head over to www.johnbartoloshow.com and make sure you check out some of the sponsors there. I want to give a special thanks to this guest and his organization, TurningPoint USA. But first, I want to take 1 minute and I want to thank a special sponsor that is going to be offering free home security systems. Please go check them out. It's a phenomenal company, and I can't thank them enough for sponsoring the show. They've done a phenomenal job, and if you sign up now at AmpSmart, you can get a free basic security system. AmpSmart. I have today the one and only Charlie Kirk. What's going on, brother?
Hey, thanks for having me, man. Honored to be here. Thank you.
No problem. You got a new book, The MAGA Doctrine. And in that book, you get into some awesome stuff. What led to the genesis of you launching that book, and why now? Why a book now?
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. We've been overwhelmed by the response, to be honest with you. It's been amazing. I mean, we hit the New York Times list for 2 weeks in a row, which is tough for a conservative to do. But I wrote the book because I was sick and tired of hearing people that hated President Trump tell me what President Trump believes. I mean, I was watching cable news and reading some of these failed newspapers, and these people hate Trump with everything within them, every fiber of their being. And they were telling me why Trump was doing what he was doing. I said to myself, why do we trust you to all of a sudden be the experts on Donald Trump's decision-making and his philosophy? So that's why I wrote the book, to fairly articulate the doctrine of the Trump presidency, to objectively put together why the president is doing what he's doing and how he's doing it. And we've done a really, again, the response to the book has been amazing. I think it's doing a very important service. And, I think that people need to understand exactly why the president believes what he believes, the accomplishments he's been able to put forward. No one could have predicted this current crisis that we're in right now at all. And no president is better suited to get us through this crisis and get us back to the prosperity that he was able to deliver. He rebuilt America's economy once, and he'll rebuild it even quicker the second time. This is a true hero's journey moment for the president of the United States, where just when you think that he's going to go into a re-election with all things being equal, a very familiar kind of enemy pops its head back up again, this time in the form of a virus from China. You couldn't write the Hollywood story that's going through right now. But would you expect anything different from a president that wasn't supposed to even run, wasn't supposed to be the nominee, wasn't supposed to win, wasn't supposed to be a successful president, and now wasn't supposed to encounter adversity like this? We've never seen anything like it. He's doing a phenomenal job, and he's going to bring this country back to greatness and prosperity in very, very little time, in record time, actually.
It's crazy, Charlie, because he definitely, and I said this to Donnie, he's definitely one of the most contested presidents of our lifetime and probably ever. He, is eating shit right now for having a damn mutual fund that held, a fraction of whatever share of the stock for the coronavirus. And I'm like, I don't even know what's in any of my mutual funds. Like, how the hell do you know that? It's just insane, the crap that they dig up. I was looking at that article like, you got to be shitting me. They don't know a mutual fund and a blind trust. I was like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah, I mean, look, and the same media is perfectly silent when Hunter Biden takes $1.5 billion to the Chinese.
Oh, it's a
right?
joke.
And President Trump's not even managing or trading these things. Meanwhile, Democrats like Dianne Feinstein are actively trading with inside information in the United States Congress. So, look, the media hates the president. They hate the success the president was able to deliver for our country, and they will stop at nothing trying to destroy him.
It's one of those things that when you look out there, you just constantly see him get bombarded. I've even said that, I worry about the toll it takes, on him sometimes, because I don't know how he does it. It's amazing to me. I really applaud him for that. And your ability too, to get in front of people and have the debates that you have face to face with people on the campuses out in the field. How do you do some type of weird meditation? What's your secret?
Oh, that's it's funny. I get that question a lot. Look, when you know why you believe what you believe, and you know the left and why they're doing what they're doing, it's very hard to get, kind of just thrown off balance. There's nothing that they could say that I haven't heard. I know their arguments before they even recite them. I consider myself an expert of the American left, and I'm proud of it. And, I understand the dark country they want to create. I understand the prosperity they want to destroy. I understand the anti-constitutional, anti-freedom perspectives they have, and I understand that they're actually deeply unhappy people themselves. And when you have all that, there's a certain peace and comfort that comes to it, the sort of serenity that you don't get thrown off. I mean, people get most kind of flustered when they get surprised. When you're not surprised by something, and people, veterans in our amazing military will tell you that when things go according to a quote unquote a plan, or when you're not surprised, you're actually able to keep your cool a lot better when you're thrown off balance. And people will say that in sports and business, and also, of course, in the military as well. And the same could be said. I'm not trying to equate what I'm doing to a military engagement, but I am using the psychological example in that sense. And, I appreciate the feedback, and that's very kind. And again, I haven't seen many leftists lately because we're all in quarantine, and that I see them on Twitter and on television, but I can't wait to get back out there once things kind of return to normal.
It's funny because one of the quiet battles going on that I've been fighting, as you've probably seen, here and there in the show, is the attack on the Second Amendment during all this. There's been these quiet, and it's funny, I had a few people on and they said it's not so quiet, to kind of get the gun stores closed, to shut down the Second Amendment. It's a little scary out there right now, and we've seen the largest number of NICS background checks we've ever seen in history, in recorded history. About some people say 3.5, some people say 7 million new gun owners. There's a lot of numbers tossed out there, but it's definitely 1.5 million more than we saw in the same month last year. What do you attribute that to, and how do you see the gun debate in the coronavirus epidemic?
Well, look, there's a lot of positives and a lot of negatives here. So I'll start with the negatives. You got the anti-constitutional, anti-freedom, anti-American, anti-human being left, quite honestly, the anti-dignity of human being left, that are trying everything they can to use this crisis to shut down gun stores and to confiscate weapons from people. That's a negative. And there should be no tolerance for the intrusion upon our individual liberties and our individual rights. These gun grabbers will stop at nothing to try to take our weapons away and to try to take our capacity to defend ourselves and defend our families. But I do think the positive is that we still have a citizenry that wants to pursue the right and the ability to protect themselves if things go essentially into a little bit of uncertain waters and chaos. And this is not, people are not buying weapons to go commit crimes. It's a very important point. The left, they're so dishonest that they'll never tell the truth about this. People are not buying weapons that they can go hurt people. They're not buying weapons because they want to go do something malevolent. They're actually buying weapons because they want to do something moral. They want to protect things that matter to them. They want to protect their family. They want to protect their business. They want to protect things that they've worked so hard for. When they start to see, stories written about, oh, you might not be able to leave your home for a couple of weeks, rational human beings start to come to the conclusion that their property might come under attack. And you see 75% of businesses in New York, a 75% increase of business break-ins in New York in just the last couple of weeks. And so rational human beings go out and they say, you know what, I'm going to go buy an AR-15. I'm going to go buy, Smith & Wesson. And I'm going to go buy some form of a firearm to be able to protect myself. And the left, that bothers them, because the left does not want to see more gun owners. The left does not want to see more human beings have the capacity to protect themselves, because it makes the left much less important. So I think it's a very positive thing. And by the way, you see 7 million, 9 million people buying weapons, as you say. I haven't seen those numbers. That's amazing. You would know them a lot better than I would. I guarantee you, not every single one of those human beings are Republicans or conservatives. I guarantee you that even far left-wing Democrats right now are dropping their ideology because they want what's best for themselves and their family. And by the way, I want them to be able to do that. Gun ownership should not be only for Republicans or for conservatives. It should be for all human beings and all Americans. And I hope coming out of this crisis, we can point back to this moment and say, hey, were those 7 to 9 million people wrong? Were those 7? Of course they weren't. They were doing the moral thing. They were doing the correct thing. They were doing the thing that was the most rational in their own self-interest to defend themselves and their families. So I think it's very positive. When I see these lines outside of gun stores, I'm very happy to see it, because that shows that our Second Amendment is alive and well, and it shows that our citizenry is still confident and comfortable to protect their Second Amendment rights.
Yeah, I'm hoping it turns the script too, Charlie. I'm hoping that it gets people, at the very least, to respect the laws in place. And I think we do a good job respecting Roe v. Wade. We may not agree with it. We may not necessarily see eye to eye with it, but we're not, attempting to put it down the way that the gun narrative and the gun conversation goes. We're not out screaming in the street the way Beto O'Rourke is. You know what I'm saying? I'd like to see at least some mutual respect for the law that's in place, and not have them try to constantly bang confiscation down our throat and, try to make us feel as if owning a gun makes you dirty and it makes it wrong.
Yeah, and look, I'm very pro-life, so that's a different conversation for a different time. But and I would make the argument that the Second Amendment is a moral law and Roe versus Wade is immoral. But again, we get to discuss that at a different time. I don't want to get too far into it. But the left will never let a crisis go to waste, try to infringe on individuals' essentially life and liberty. And this is a fundamental liberty, the natural right that we as human beings have granted us by God to defend yourself and defend your property. Government didn't give us this right, and government better do their best to protect those rights. And right now you see collectivist, power-hungry governors in California and other states that are doing everything they possibly can to try to prevent people from protecting themselves.
Right.
And again, they are saying that marijuana shops are essential, but gun shops are not. They're saying that liquor stores are essential and churches are not. That's the violation of the First and Second Amendment. So, again, coming out of this crisis, I hope this can be rather instructive about exactly what our liberties and our rights are to those people that wish to take them away.
One of the struggles, Charlie, I have coming from the inward side of the firearms business and the defense industry is we fight our own battles. We kill ourselves inside of the defense industry. And I know you know that. You've been to NRA, you've been to the shows. I try to overcome some of these things, and it's so hard. And I go back and forth and I get into debates with people all day long. You have people out there that put messages out there that work for different brands and different companies, almost turning people away, almost saying like, you're not a member of my tribe or my, group. How do you beat that back? How do you explain rational thought to some of these folks within the industry? How do you not stop the infighting?
Look, I hate the Infighting. The National Rifle Association is a civic organization. It's the nation's oldest and arguably one of the most important civil rights organizations in the country. I don't get involved in all the back and forth and the board fights and all that. I have friends on both sides of it. It just pains me, to be perfectly honest with you, because our Second Amendment is so much more important than all that. And the left loves to see the NRA divided and all the infighting. It's all nonsense. You have to ask yourself the question, though, what is it that the left would love to see? And the left would love to see nothing more than the crossfire of people that believe in firearms, no pun intended, right? Within the movement. And again, I'm more on the periphery of it. Obviously, I'm in the conservative movement. I'm a proud NRA life member. I'm a proud firearm owner of multiple firearms. I don't disclose how many I own, like any good gun owner, but I have multiple. All legal and all well kept and well what's the right word I'm looking for? They're
secure.
They're out there. No, yeah, that's exactly right. Secure, exactly. You know the nomenclature a lot better.
I thought you were going to say maintained, but who cleans guns, right? Who cleans?
Right, exactly. No, but they are secure. They're maintained quite well, but essentially they are very secure. And I'm proud of it because I think every human being should do that. Should have the capacity to own and be proud of it. But again, I get disappointed, to be honest with you, when I see the kind of infighting, when I see the back and forth. Because go ahead, you have
I was going to say, and Charlie, it's not just the NRA. I want to take the onus off the NRA. There's executives and employees at companies, one of which made a post on Facebook that said, still seeing posts about welcoming new gun owners from the panic buy. Just because you ran out and bought a gun does not make them part of the tribe. That does not make them allies or reformed. They are people that didn't care either way and just didn't own a gun before, or bought a gun to protect themselves from all the evil gun owners, aka if you can't beat them, join them. Nothing against them, but they are not a newfound piece of the puzzle to end the war on our rights. And that infuriated me. And that came from an employee within the firearms industry.
Yeah, I don't think I share that view, because I think that if someone's going to go buy a firearm right now, if I'm understanding the quote you just shared correctly, they could be an ally. I mean, I don't.
You don't know.
I think people can be convinced.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are changing their views of China right now. I think people are changing their views of a lot of deeply held notions that we've had in our country, and so I don't care. I guess I care a little bit if they've been fighting for or against our Second Amendment rights, but if they're willing to have a reversal, I mean, welcome aboard. Right? I mean, redemption is one of the key components of Western society, right? I mean, so what if they haven't been talking about the Second Amendment since they were 12 years old? I mean, if they're 50 now and all of a sudden they're like, yeah, actually, I do want a gun and I do want to protect myself and my family. Great. I mean, then the more the better. Right? Isn't that what it's all about?
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't like divisive terms like tribe and putting things in there that, almost insinuate you'll never be a part of what I am. I mean, you supposed to be born with it or not? I don't get it, and you have very notable, sometimes executives putting this stuff out there.
Well, I don't hold that view, and I don't think that's right. And look, as someone that's in politics, but not necessarily in the gun industry, I just have to say you guys got to get your act together because it's and I don't mean that in any insulting way, but I see nothing but infighting and people that are suing each other and people that are fighting. And again, that's not exclusive just the gun industry, but you got, you in particular, the whole community, if you will, you guys have one of the most important fights in the firearm rights movement, in the firearm manufacturing movement. So please just continue to just end all that stuff and just focus on discontinue those kind of infighting and just focus on the necessity of our firearms ownership and why we need to continue to have the right to protect ourselves and protect our families.
Amen. That's very well said, Charlie. You've done a phenomenal job in your debates and in your conversations, winning people over. Do you ever get, insanely frustrated because you don't show it? You almost never let them see you sweat, right? You ever have that moment where...
Yeah, I mean, everyone gets frustrated, right? But I mean, I just get frustrated differently. When I get frustrated, I just work harder, and I've always been that way. So I try to always apply whatever energy I might be feeling towards something productive. And I always say I'm not the most talented person. I have a couple gifts I've been given, but the one thing that no one will ever be able to take away from me, and the one thing I'll always be able to say is I'll outwork everybody in my specific space.
I like
and that's what I've always prided myself on.
Yeah, so. And I got to ask, I know we're going to be a little strapped for time, but how does it end for you? I mean, I know Candace recently announced she'd be running for potentially a seat. Do you see anything like that in your future, or do you just going to continue the mission of Turning Point forever?
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to run for anything, to be honest with you. I love what I get to do. And again, I promise myself and I promise my employees and I promise our donors and our investors that I'm in this at Turning Point USA in this fight for at least the foreseeable future. I have no real reason to leave. I'm happy. I'm content. I'm fulfilled. I'm productive. And isn't that what being a human being is all about, right?
Absolutely.
Making a difference, being part of something bigger than yourself. I wake up every single day so thankful and full of gratitude. I get to do what I love. And my experience is just when human beings go away from things they love, it's hard to find that somewhere else, right? I mean, and so I'm not in any rush to find the next thing or to run for office. And I mean, we have 150 people here on staff. We're on 2,000 high school and college campuses. We have a podcast that's doing really well. The book's performing. And I get to talk about what I love, and I get to see people's minds change, and I get to see people have more confidence around why they believe what they believe. So I'm the luckiest guy on the planet. I really believe it. And so I think if you're too quick to kind of move away from that, I don't want to ever be ungrateful. And again, I think it's, people ask that question all the time for good purposes and good reason, but I'm very content and very happy where I am.
Yeah, it's funny. People ask me all the time. They're like, "What made you want to serve?" I said, "I just wanted to create a platform for people that are pro 2A that maybe weren't as open about it to come on and talk and share a conversation and have the industry come on and share a conversation, whether you agree or disagree." I mean, I just had the Yankees hitting coach on the other day, the first female hitting coach in baseball, I believe, and she's pro 2A. I mean, these people just don't have a platform to come out and talk. Yeah, and they don't have a platform to come out and talk. And I think one of the large failures of the gun industry is we've always made it about the gun. And I'm like, it's not about the gun. It's about the story, the journey, the conversation, why you're pro-America, you're pro-USA, you support the Constitution. It just doesn't make sense to me. I just didn't want to do another out of the box, gun show, whatever. And I think that's some of the mistakes that we make as a community. We always try to make it about the gun, and I think it's more about the people and the great folks in this country. And I think that's what you bring to light a lot of the times with Turning Point, and the great people you have around you and the great folks you have associated with the brand.
Well, thank you. Yeah. And look, there are millions and millions of gun owners out there and people that are being convinced towards gun ownership. And I could tell you that just be open-minded to bring new recruits into the cause. People that might have been total anti-gun activists before this are open-minded. I have members of my family that were always they were always like, oh, Charlie, I don't know if I like your, gun stuff. And now they're, hey, where do I buy a gun? I've had a change of heart. And that's a good thing, right? I mean, what are we doing here? We're going to just act as if you have to have a lifelong membership card and a purity test. Oh. I mean, the left is worried that we're increasing in numbers, and that's a good thing. I mean, they want to take our guns away, and meanwhile, former advocates and voters on the other side are now wanting to own firearms. God bless them. I'm totally in support of that. So I think that this opens up a huge opportunity for our movement. It opens up a huge opportunity for those of us that believe in individual rights and believe in individual freedoms. And I do want to say this, you have to be pro 2A, but don't forget the entire Bill of Rights. And even involved in 2A, there are two other amendments that are super important. The Fourth Amendment, it allows you to have the confidence that the government's not going to come and take those guns away from you. So the Second and the Fourth Amendment are directly related together. The right to privacy, the right to be able to own private property without it being infiltrated and investigated. And of course, the First Amendment, our ability to talk about it right here. So the Second Amendment is the guardian. It's the shield of all the other amendments. Without the Second Amendment, there is no other amendment. The only reason why, for example, I look at the Hong Kong example, and it's a deeper philosophical point. But if Hong Kong was able to have gun ownership the way that we as Americans do, the Hong Kong protests would not have been necessary. It would have been a peaceful negotiation between the Chinese Communist Party and the people of Hong Kong. Instead, it was a hostage negotiation. Instead, the people of Hong Kong had no leverage. And I'm not arguing for armed rebellion or armed resistance. That's not at all. In fact, when a citizenry is armed, it actually prevents that sort of conflict from happening. Because, and Hong Kong's a perfect example of this. And so I can say for one that, the fight for the Second Amendment is instrumental and crucial for all the other liberties and freedoms that we as Americans enjoy.
Yeah, and it needs a lot of love right now as we stem into the election post-corona, and you have things like national reciprocity coming back up, and of course you have the Silencer Suppressor Act, potentially rebooting with one of the congressmen taking it to floor, potentially. So, how do you see it playing out coming out of? Because before corona, we had, Joe Biden being confronted on the floor by was Jerry Wayne, and confronted about his gun stance. I thought this was poised to really heat up, and then obviously Corona took over, and now we had this run on guns. But how do you see it playing out based on, and how do we win over some of these college guys? How does this all play out post Corona as we get through COVID?
Look, I think that the Second Amendment, I think we have to continue to put the left and the Democrats on defense when it comes to the issues of the Second Amendment. And look, Joe Biden has been an anti-Second Amendment activist his entire life. He tries to act as if he represents the people and the values of Scranton, Pennsylvania, where he grew up, and that's just not true at all. And that, he has time and time again voted for anti-gun measures, voted for anti-freedom measures, voted for anti-constitution measures. He was the vice president of the most anti-gun president, probably in the last 100 years, President Barack Obama, who did everything he possibly can to confiscate our weapons from us and even mocked us for owning guns. So, look, post-corona, we have to remember this moment, communicate to the 7 to 9 million new gun owners, and use them maybe to win votes over coming into 2020. This election now. And it's a huge political and electoral opportunity for us.
I have to ask. Where's Joe Biden now?
I don't know. He's in some form of bunker. So that is a good question. So
I heard he was doing these shadow press conferences and whatnot. But interestingly enough, you hear very little and you get very little response. And it's you have the president doing such a great job getting out there every day, and doing the work and putting himself in front of people, and everybody's looking for him to be perfect. You're not always perfect, and that's an impossible request. You, Charlie, when you go out there and you face these colleges, and it's like literally like facing the firing line, right? And you're getting the opportunity to talk to these youngsters. Do you ever feel like, okay, I feel like I can't penetrate these guys? Or do you feel like there's an issue you're just never going to get through to them? Or how do you overcome, is really kind of the theme I'm getting at. How do you overcome some of these folks?
Well, look, it's hard in all things that you do. And you have to understand sometimes you're not going to be able to persuade people, and sometimes you're not going to be able to convince them. But just keep in mind, what is your target audience? If it's being filmed, maybe it's the millions of people that are going to be looking at it at the end. And so persuasion and communication, it can be immensely frustrating as someone who believes in these values to not always see the fruits of what you're doing immediately. It took me 5 or 6 years before I started to see it, broad-based, persuasion and a movement built around this. And so for all your listeners out there that might feel frustrated and might feel, as if they don't have people with them, that's not true. And just, you have to keep the fight, stay focused on the end goal, and, we will win.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. And it's always tough. So to anybody out there, sitting around in their home under quarantine during Corona, if you get into these debates, and I'm sure everybody's had them in their house, there's not necessarily a win. You just have to have an informed debate. And that's, Charlie, I think we all can learn something from you. You're a great debater and you're a great conversationalist. And I can't thank you. Yeah, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. I just admire how you're able to stand there and take, the blows, so to speak. It's pretty wild. But the stuff that you put up,
very kind of you.
Yeah, it's pretty wild, and it's commendable, and that takes a certain amount of, I guess, harnessing your chi, right? So, my hat's off to you and TurningPoint USA in the book. I'm looking forward to taking a look at it. I just bought it on Amazon, I believe. I'll download it now. But I'm looking forward to everything that you guys do, and I'm looking forward to getting into the fight a little bit with this Second Amendment push as we go into election. And I can't thank you enough for taking the time to come on the show, and let everybody know where they can let everybody know where they can get the book and where they can find TurningPoint and contact you guys if they want to support or be involved.
Well, the book is called The MAGA Doctrine. You can go to bookstores all across the country, most of which are closed. So I encourage Amazon. It's selling very well. Would love to have any support people can give. And also have the Charlie Kirk Show podcast. If people want to subscribe to it, they could type in the Charlie Kirk Show and press subscribe. And that's doing very nicely. And TurningPoint USA is tpusa.com. So anyway, if people want to stay involved or kind of connected, we'd love it. We deeply support it.
Yeah, I'm subscribing to the podcast now, and I'll put some of those links down below for everybody to take a look at. It's phenomenal work, Charlie, and I can't thank you enough for the work that you're doing, and the content's amazing. I mean, just seeing the posts and everything else, I'm looking forward to what you build down there, and with TurningPoint, it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Great, thanks so much, my friend, and thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate you. All right,
thank you. You bet.
There you have him. Charlie Kirk. Interesting viewpoints, and Charlie is obviously a leader on the ground in terms of what he does and the things he's able to accomplish. So I look forward to everything that he does upcoming. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So I can't thank him enough. Amazing. And I want to take a minute. I want to thank the sponsors. Head over to www.johnbartoloshow.com. Check out all the sponsors. And I also want to take a minute to thank, Kenzies Optics, Crossbreed Holsters, Riton Optics, all the different brands that support the show. It's so great. I do want to throw a shout out to Strike Group and thank them. Phenomenal guys. And I want to thank AmpSmart. If you don't have a home security system, please head over to AmpSmart. I put the link down below. This week and this week only, they're offering you a free home security system. Please go check it out and check them out. But I appreciate Charlie for taking the time, and I appreciate everyone at TurningPoint, and can't thank them enough.